Sometime back, I read the Tao Te Ching and posted that up as a just, dark screen. Go ahead and listen to this as you're meditating or something like that. And I tried to read it in a gentle, kind of an easy tone. Somebody was looking at that recently, and this comes up once in a while. And they asked me the same question. How do you understand that stuff? That they've been doing some researching and whatnot, and they find that very first verse that's in here, if you're familiar with it, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. That's how it starts, and people look at that and go, gosh, what does that mean? The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. And if you look around, you will find really this common idea that this stuff is cryptic, it's nebulous, it's something that you're always going to grow with, that there's myriad of directions you can go with it and everything. And I'm going to say, stop. That's not good. Now, I'm not a Taoist, but people that are Taoists typically don't understand this core teaching. Let me get there. It's the same thing if you know Jesus is teaching something that's like karma. The measure you mete unto others are likewise meted unto you. Buddha, seek emptiness. Jesus, blessed are the poor in spirit. If you can understand that Jesus is teaching the same thing that the Buddha did, but in different cryptic language, you would not be a Christian. So if a Christian is going to tell me what Jesus teaches, I'm going to say, nope, you don't understand Jesus, because you think he's a returning savior coming back to get you. You don't understand that Jesus, when he became the Christ, that was akin to him finding his Buddha nature. There's something parallel going on that needs to be understood. Okay, that's going to happen here. Will a Taoist tell me that Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus are teaching the same thing on the same template? If they don't know that, don't talk to them. They don't know it. There's one core teaching when you understand it. And when you understand it, it will be a mental process. It won't be because you're a Taoist, a Buddhist, or a Christian. It'll be because you are intelligent. And you can figure this out. Okay, it's going to be really important to narrow down what we're going to be doing here. There's a very specific body of work I want to talk about. The Tao Te Ching is not Taoism. Taoism is a huge religion with all kinds of volumes on it. But this is the core teaching. This is the lesson that Lao Tzu left behind, and from this lesson grew Taoism. Taoism emerged from this core. We're going to go to the core. We're not going to study Taoism. We're going to go to this core teaching that has weird verses in it. It doesn't tell us to go put on a robe and go begging bowl. That's actually Buddhism. It doesn't tell us things like that. It's something different. The Dhammapada from the Buddha. Buddhism, again, the Pali Canon would fill up this room with volumes. But this is the Buddha's core teaching in the same way that this was Lao Tzu's core teaching. And these are identical to each other, but they're in different verbiage, so they're going to have to be interpreted to understand them. We're going to do that here in a little bit. But this is the core teaching. Buddhism emerges from this core teaching in the same way Taoism emerges from this core teaching. Now, when we bring Jesus into it, we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to do it with the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is a basic core teaching that the rest of the religion, Christianity, emerges from. We're just going to stick with those three core things. Those right there are all three identical teachings held in different verbiage. Not just that, but also two different genres. One of them is a self-help. This is yours. You turn in. Jesus will tell you to enter the narrow gate, but people don't know what that means. You got to turn inward. You got to forgive the odd against your brother. You got the same massive stuff, the mote in your eye. People don't get how similar that is to Eastern teaching. Instead, we're just going to worship the teacher because that's a lot easier, huh? We live our life worshiping the teacher, and then we don't have to work at anything. Anyway, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about it. I have spent, oh my gosh, thousands of hours pondering this stuff, and that's how it works. But think about this. If you're looking for people who's got a degree, Professor Paulson, what do you have here? Well, I actually don't have a degree in the Tao Te Ching or, religious studies or something like that. So what qualifies me? What qualified somebody 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago when there were no colleges, when the vast majority of people didn't read and write, but they memorized stories and passed them around and they engaged with these all in their mind? They're doing something at a higher level than we are, but they had no other option. That was what they had for their activity throughout the day. They didn't have a media, lifestyle, things like that. Life was so different, we can't quite understand it. This is something that needs to be thought about. Ponder this. Some time ago, a man named Lao Tzu, supposedly, I mean, he probably didn't exist, but there's a story of a person named Lao Tzu. That means who? The master, the great master, something like that. The true master, Lao Tzu, is what that means. So as a name, is it really, it doesn't sound like somebody's name, but more of a title. The Tao Te Ching then is a series of verses left by this person that was supposedly, as they're disappearing off and going to go and leave the humdrum stuff of life, they're going to go off, okay? All of them, Buddha leaves the humdrum of life, Jesus is resurrected. All of these stories are going to have something going on, but there's only 81 verses in here by somebody who was a master, a guru. However, you've got to ask yourself some questions. What is this person? Is this a supernatural individual? Is this somebody that has some kind of qualities that go beyond mine? And they're leaving messages behind that are either so cryptic that I'm never going to understand it. That means they're so smart that they're doing something that I'm not smart enough to figure out, or they're just making up something that's like, you know what, I'm going to throw something out there and you'll never figure it out, but it'll keep you busy all your life. I don't think that's the case. What we need to do is understand it as if we are back then. You're hurt. What are you going to go see the guru on the mountaintop for? You know, not to go have a picnic or to visit him or something like that. Typically the stories are somebody's hurt. You go sit down and say, Master, what's it all about? What's life about? Why am I here? Why does it hurt? Why does it suck? Why do things not work? And the guru is not going to tell you things in plain language. That would be academic. You're not going to know that. The guru is going to put something in your mind that's going to confuse you. It's got the answer in there, but it's a nugget that is nested in verbiage that has to be worked through in order to get. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. What am I doing right now? I'm telling the Tao. Does it work? Can you read that and go, oh, I understand it now? Nope, you can't. You have to work it out in your own head. Naming is the origin of all particular things. We're going to cover these down here. What I want to say, though, is that if you went up to Lao Tzu and said, I hurt, what's life about? And he says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Now go and come back when you can tell me what that means. So you do. And you work it out and you look through these things and you understand something. The Tao is the pathway, this pathway that I want to take, this understanding of what life is about. This path to understanding is the Tao. This path to understanding that we can talk about is not the eternal pathway. It's not the eternal Tao. I want the eternal Tao. What can I do to get it then? You know what? You can talk about it. That's not eternal. That's academic. What you have to do is make it experiential. You make it yours. You look and say, okay, I can understand what I have to do. This is going to start unfolding into a body of work that's going to tell me that I'm a product of my thinking and my thoughts and that I need to resolve these things. Right here, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, is letting me know that if I want the eternal Tao, you shift it from being told, academic, to being experienced, experiential. I now look at this memory where I was molested and I hate that son of a bitch, and I'm going to work through until I've resolved my connection with that, and I'm no longer living through the pain and the cyclical reoccurrence of those things. That's just one example. We become a product of our entire life experiences, judged experiences. So when we go talk to the master, he's going to tell us something that is we should be able to mentally access this and engage with it in our thinking process. If people are saying it's nebulous, you can't get there, guess what? The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. They haven't made it theirs yet. If you think there's a bunch of things or you can't quite understand it, what this means is it's a mental process. It's your personal mental process. When you want this to be real, stop and get ready to turn inward. This is your path. That's the only real one. We can sit here and talk and talk and talk and talk. It's not going to do anything. Go to church and have all these things and sit and talk and talk and talk. And somebody tells you, give it over to Jesus. And you go, I do. And I still feel like shit. It doesn't work. What's going on? You got to enter the narrow gate. You got to forgive the odd against your brother. You've got to do things with Jesus that Christians don't do. All right, so they're teaching this exact same lesson by doing what? If the blind lead the blind, they will all fall into the ditch. Yeah, what's happening? The Tao that can be talked about, told, is not the eternal Tao. When the blind lead the blind, they will all fall into the pit. Same lesson. See how it unwraps? You got to make your brain do that. You have to put it in your head and engage with it. it's a very specific lesson, but you have to sit with that lesson and make it in your mind until it's like, okay, it fits. I have it. Listening to somebody interpret, it doesn't work. It doesn't make you understand. It's going to be the same thing here. The Buddha is going to start off in very plain language in an identical teaching, the Dhammapada, that starts off in so plain language. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on our thoughts. It's based in our thoughts. There you go. We're mental products. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, is telling us the same thing. You see how thick it is. You have to work through it. You don't have to work through Buddha. So, okay, I got that. This one you go, how does that mean mental? It just, by the time you work it through, you go, okay, all right, I get it. I get it. Now you know it. It's not just sitting there going, what was that again? Can I go bring it up? You've got it memorized. You can actually live through it instead of just think about it. I remember one time, this was years ago, and where there was a group of us together, and there was this woman driving, and she was kind of a hothead. But we're going to like this meditation center or something like that, a group of people, and there was somebody that in a big truck. She was in a minivan, so we were all in her vehicle. And this big pickup truck had stopped and was waiting for her to swing out of the way. And it was a big truck. It was a narrow street. And she actually needed to kind of get out of the truck's way. He was just sitting there waiting. She didn't recognize it. She's sitting there. And she's like, well, come on, do something. She's acting really like, oh, this is kind of not okay. And somebody in the back said, that's, I can't remember what they said. Something about, not the best spiritual way to act or something like that. It was kind of a tense moment right there. But I remember the person going, don't you think I know that? Okay. So you can know, I know what to do. Damn it, but I don't do it. It's not a part of your life. That's the difference. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. You got to live it. You got to make it yours. That's it. The master's going to tell you, this is your life. You're a product of your thinking. Got it? You ready? You got to figure that out. So I'm going to bring up the Tao right now. I'm going to be using the Stephen Mitchell translation. I'll talk about various translations in a minute here too. This is one right off the beginning. That's the first thing that you're told. Master, what the hell is life about? And he sits you down and says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestation come from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. Okay, this is your life starting out right there. This is where you come from. You're going to be a mental product. The name that is named is not the eternal name. You should be devoid of anything right here. You want to, once you name, what is naming? We have to understand what naming is, and they're utilizing analogous verbiage, and everything means up in the mind. So if I've named something mentally, what does that mean? That means I've got a memory. I've got an experience, a judged experience. Right there, that's what that is. I am accumulating memories and becoming a part of who and what I am. If we were to put that in a different story, like a creation story from Judaism, that right there in the beginning, what was it? We had the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. You're a mental product. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. That would be you at a point in time in life as a person ready to begin growing, but you're at a pure state. This would be analogous to Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden before first sin, starting out. All right, I'll stay away from that stuff. It gets a little thicker. The unnameable is the eternally real. We don't want to begin judging things. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Right there, what did we do? We just ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Naming is the origin of all particular things. I am now leaving the sandbox and my tea dolls over here or whatever, my tea set, and going out and learning that life isn't the way it is. I saw, so-and-so hitting so-and-so and them crying and screaming and begging for help, and they were adults and nothing I could do. I got told to do something and don't ever tell anybody or I will kill you and I will hurt you. And you begin learning things about life that you realize are no longer okay. The Gia Fu Feng translation says the named is the mother of 10,000 things. Instead of naming is the origin of all particular things, the named is the mother of 10,000 things. How many memories do you have? You're going to become a product of your memories. You start from a pure state. You're going to begin naming things, and you're going to become a product of those named things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Free from desire, analogous terms again, this does not mean I physically desire something. This means that I'm holding on to something at a deeper layer that I may not want it at all. Why would I call it desire then? That keeps you from interacting with it. I don't desire that. I don't desire those things that I'm hanging on to, so I'm going to leave them alone. You need to understand that it doesn't mean physical, it's spiritual, and that the desire no longer means that you want it. It means that you're not letting go of it. If you don't like it, why do you keep it? Free from anything that you might have judged up here, you realize the mystery of life. The flow, the smooth flow, caught in desire, caught in these things that you have named, these 10,000 things, caught in that. You see only the manifestations. They're going to come at you repeatedly over and over again. Life is going to cycle based on what you have named in life. Free from them, you're going to have a smooth life. Caught in them, you're going to see the repetition of them. And they come from the same place, yet mystery and manifestation come from the same source. The source is called darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. The gateway. Turn inward. That's the gateway. That is the narrow gate. Okay, so you have to understand that the material works that way. And if you know that, then you can start engaging with it. Pretend like you're sitting there reading this and you're talking to the guru and he's telling you you're asking him the questions. What questions do you have in life? What questions do we have? What the? How? Why? How come? Here's why. This is it. Let me talk to you. And then we go through that entire process. It's very old. It's very cryptic. It was for their time. We have to put ourselves in their place, but we have to understand that it is accessible to us. That if we can get to the point where we understand it's a personal trip, that it's what I must do, then work it through until you see yourself in the material. I can interact with this. Oh, naming is the origin of all particular things means nothing to me until I know it means to me that every time I had a judged experience, resolved or unresolved, that was the beginning of it in my world experience. That is a part of me. This is about me. But when you're ready, it's about you. It's about anybody that says, Master, what the hell? This happens to all of us. Okay, one other thing I wanted to say, I hope that helps. If you want more translation, I'll do it. I tend to not try to I have with Jesus material and people don't like following through with that, but I think you're supposed to find this on your own. Somebody just reading through it doesn't, I don't know if I haven't found anybody really interested in it at that level yet. People still like the idea that it's nebulous and it can't be understood. And then when you say, no, that means it's a mental trip, it's yours personally, they don't like that. That's what happens with Jesus and Buddha too. At some point you realize, you know what? If I follow this path, I become a person that is not a divider. I don't have to. I can be any one of those if I want to. But if I follow that path, the rest of it is just a lifestyle because, life is, wow, what are we going to do? Yeah, let's get together and do things together that we enjoy, that like minds so we can share things with lifestyles because life is difficult and it's easy to get caught up into, things there's too much temptation out there. It's good to be in groups sometimes that help us manage our own tribe. But okay, the last thing I wanted to say is the translations. It depends on the material you're reading. For me, like when I'm translating the Bible, I only use the King James Version. I will reference the NRSV sometimes for the header information. That's helpful. But when it comes time to interpreting or to doing word counts and things like that, I only go to the King James Version because that's the most accurate one that I could get in English before it starts morphing into something different. You'd have to understand what is in there to understand that it's being modified downstream by people that I don't think understand it's there. That's the same thing here with the Tao Te Ching. I have 5 different copies. There's probably 1,000 or more different translations from Chinese to English of the Tao Te Ching. A lot of people have gone after it. Chinese does not translate directly into English very well, so it's a struggle. There's a lot of variation. Some languages, a Germanic language or something, it'd be easy to do, but something in, Cantonese or something that's, I don't know, some Chinese that's, I don't know what. I'm not even sure. I don't read Chinese at all, but to get English out of those, symbols and all of that, and they talk in concepts. Okay, what I'm getting at is this. That is, you go through all those different translations from different people, you're going to find they're different. You saw the one here, the naming is the origin of all particular things, or naming is the origin of the 10,000 things. You see that those variations are there between translators, and one of them can be more helpful. You go 10,000, oh, that's not just something that I heard. That's all of my thoughts. I become a bundle of my memories right there. And I'm going to find that in other teachings as well. You're going to become a bundle of these memories. I'm going to give this land to you and all of your offspring, as many as there are stars in the sky or sand in the beach or whatever. Those are all your memories that are going to become a part of what you're living through. All of these work that way in a very cryptic, old-fashioned way. Sometimes it's better if you want to understand the Tao Te Ching, you might want multiple translations so you can read them side by side. They're going to sound different in many cases. You're going to read one and go, I don't get that. Then read another one and go, wow, that doesn't even sound like the same verse. I won't pull up any examples now, but sometimes you might get stuck on something here and go, gosh, I don't get it. And then somewhere you read somebody else's copy and go, wait a minute, I understand that. So bear that in mind, that the translation didn't make it. Sometimes it's better in this case, instead of having one, to have a bunch of them. In that case, you're taking a bunch of translators and trying to average up the concept. There's a concept that's in the Chinese material, and they're using words to try and convey a concept. So if you can gather up all of the words, you can start getting a better idea of what the original concept in Chinese would have been. So that's just one thing. I have one that I got from, it was actually a very nice looking one. It's like a tabletop Tao Te Ching that's very fancy and has, a cover and wonderful artwork and everything. However, it's the absolute worst translation I could ever think of as I went through and read it. I think it came from one of those Amazon book sales up front, $3 for this. Here, take these if they're not being sold. Anyway, somebody got one for me and said, here, you like these. So anyway, I start reading it. But what the translator did was instead of trying to stay true to the language, they stayed as true to Chinese language as they could, but only after finding a way to make it rhyme. So they're trying to put this sing-song thing into it, which I'll just say straight up, that screwed it up. That screwed it up. You want the words to be as close as possible to the origin. You don't take the origin and try to morph it into something in your language that's different. You're losing the material. So you want things as accurate as possible. That's why the Bible, when it spreads out, it gets diluted. These ones up here, you need to gather a concept. So you need to see different translations because we don't know what it is in Chinese. Anyway, okay, I just want to say that. I hope that's helpful to anybody that's seeking. If you have any questions or you want anything else, if you have any other ones that look weird to you, not all of these, I don't know if all of these are mentally interactive. I don't remember the one about the ruler, the good ruler rules the country like cooking a small fish. You're like, what? What does that mean? Okay, if you got a small fish cooks in seconds. You don't put much to it. You better leave it alone. Get it on the heat. Take it off the heat. You don't spend a lot doing with it, fussing with it, messing with it. Well, look what's happening in America right now with somebody that's... I'm old enough to remember this term when everything that we used to have, our electronics were dials and things like that. And, you might have a stereo set up and it's got all these knobs up front and you got kids at home and you go turn it on and it's like, boom, all of a sudden it's like the stereo blasts out loud. It scares the children. They're the ones that turned it on. Anyway, the term was called knob dicking. It's like just screwing with everything. Just leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. You're messing it up. That's exactly what this is right here. It's simple. Don't engage. Don't engage. You're messing it up. It's fine. Don't upset it. it's being upset right now by somebody that can't keep their fingers out of every damn thing on the planet. You can see that one come into play. So there are some that don't quite fit the psyche perhaps, but fit what's going on in life, fits what's going on in the world, how to disengage from that stuff, because you can see that happening. Yeah, so this one talks about not just internal spiritual things, but also the world at large. Kind of a lifestyle a bit. Here, let me just take a quick look at this. This is 3 in the Tao. If you overesteem great men, people become powerless. Do we see that happening? Sure the hell do. Remembering here, all the verbiage is analogous. So great doesn't mean wonderful or good or anything like that. It just means powerful. Great is overesteem. Here's somebody that over the top. But that's happening in the physical world. That's not really a mentally interactive step. Therefore, the master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores. So what this does is it says this is what happens in the physical world. So in the spiritual world, this is what happens. What we have to do is, you have to figure out what that is. Okay, so you always make sure that you are a part of the story. If you read something like this, we join spokes together in a wheel, but it's the center hole that makes the wagon move. You are in this story. We join spokes together in a wheel. We are the wheel. Joining spokes together in a wheel means we are living life and creating our cyclical nature. But it's the center hole that makes the wagon move. Wagon moving is us going through life, and it's whatever we're holding in the center that determines its motion. We join spokes in the wheel. We create our life experience cyclically, and whatever we hold is what determines our course in life. We shape clay pot into a pot, but it's the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. Now we're the clay pot. Emptiness inside, that's devoid of, that's poor in spirit, but it's not. It holds whatever we want. We can put whatever we want to inside. We hammer wood for a house, but it's the inner space that makes it livable. We are the house. You see how that works? This happens in Jesus material or Buddha material as well. If you have to, you're the wineskin, and, old wine is old life and new wine is new life, and you can't put new life into old self. You got to, all of that. You become the element in that type of verse. Okay, well, that's it. They kind of go all over when you read the Tao. They're not. There's a couple of variations in there. Here's about me, how I came about. Here's about life, how life works, that sort of stuff. So, and then transitioning, how to, from looking outward, here's the world, so we turn inward and try this instead. Kind of a theme to it. You have to look through there. But it does have some, real world examples that you would go, I don't know how to fit this in my psyche. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it will fit in the psyche. Sometimes you have to defeat an enemy, and you might think, that's the bad people. In the physical world, you have to defeat your enemies. They're not helping you. But metaphorically, that's, the enemies within we must defeat. Always making sure that if we're taking any kind of a verse, making sure that the analogs might, it'll work. Naked, it's good to be naked. That's uncovered spiritually. Fasting means devoid of, going and sitting and watching the sunset. That's fasting. That's not eating. That's not consuming life, watching news, sitting down, absorbing. It's just finding that peace and quiet that we need. That's fasting is to the world. All that stuff going on, what can you do about it? You can get caught up in it and get frazzled in it. You got to just turn away from it. You got to fast as to it. That doesn't mean we don't do something about it, but being frazzled and emotionally drained by it is not a good way to live life. Anyway, okay, so it's really lifestyle work from a mental standpoint, but also describes life. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to hear them. Hope this was helpful. See you in the next video.